big chunks of stuff missing.
What's going on, everybody? Today we're going to be digging into the BMW engine a little bit further, the E46 M54B30 engine. So if you didn't see the previous video, I pulled the engine out of the chassis, completely removed everything in the front. If you haven't watched that, go check that out. I'll link it up here. We're going to be draining the rest of the coolant out of the block because there's still some coolant sitting in here. We're gonna have to flip this over and drain it completely out. Then we're gonna remove the remaining pieces off of the outside of the block, like the oil filter housing, the water neck, the timing cover, and both engine mounts. Just get everything kind of cleared off out of the way. And then we're going to completely clean the block and degrease it and everything like that. I got a fresh can of engine degreaser and a fresh parts cleaning brush. We're gonna kind of detail this block a little bit. This is an aluminum block, so it's not gonna have any rust on it. It's a very clean looking block, but we're gonna make this thing look almost brand new. We're gonna flip it over, spray it all the way down, and clean every nook and cranny on the exterior of this block. Then we're gonna start digging into the internals of the bottom end. We're gonna pull the oil pan off, pull anything off that's inside in there, and then pop the pistons and rods off the crank and remove the crank completely from the block. Give you a quick look at what I'm talking about. You can see down in there, there's still antifreeze sitting in the water jackets down there. So gotta get that out, especially we're gonna flip this over anyways, but you know, while you're trying to work on stuff, going back and forth on the engine stand, you don't want that to just continue to pour antifreeze out all over the place. We got it on a rubber mat here and I have floor dry, but we're gonna try and catch as much as we can in my old nasty oil drain pan and see how much we can get out of there. I wanna say on this side, there's a threaded bolt here that should, I think that goes in, yeah, that goes into the side of the block right there. So we're not gonna roll it completely all the way upside down. We're just gonna kind of tilt it to enough to where it can like drain out of that, and we'll see how much we get out of there. And then we'll have to unfortunately tip it all the way over, and any extra that's still in there will get all over the place because my oil pan isn't long enough for an entire 6-cylinder. That is just a short little guy. So we'll get that kind of drained out the best we can. And we're also gonna be taking out this motor mount, like I was saying, and the one down here. We are gonna get the dipstick out of there, but not quite yet because that is sealed. So when we're doing all the degreasing, I don't want stuff to get down in there. I mean, it's not gonna be the end of the world because I'm pulling the oil pan off and then we're gonna clean that anyways. But to reduce, you know, excess dirt and debris getting in there, we're not gonna take that off just yet. So as you can kind of see, there's some stuff and junk settled on here because the engine tilts that way. So this kind of catches any dry debris or dirt or anything. So I'm gonna shop vac that off and get as much of that out of there. And then I do have to remove a few other little odds and ends. But we're gonna get this completely stripped down here and start working on this. I don't know if you can see from there, this passenger side of the block that sits face down or slanted this way, it's very nice and clean under here because there's not really anything that can drip or catch, and it can't hold any debris. Versus the other side on the driver's side, that catches a lot of stuff that might fall down into the engine bay when you're opening it up. Leaves, whatever, dirt and stuff can settle on top. So this side is gonna take like minimal cleaning or very minimal. Down towards the oil pan, of course, there is gonna be some, you know, residual oil or anything like that. So we're gonna scrub that off real good. And then obviously the driver's side is much dirtier. We're gonna take a little bit more time to clean that side. But I wanna get basically the whole block to the condition of this side where it's nice and clean and basically make it look brand new. So I just went ahead and pulled off this water tube or coolant hose that comes off the backside of the water pump. And right on here, this is actually broke and this O-ring was smashed. So that may have contributed or been a result of the engine overheating and blowing a head gasket. Something was going on with the cooling system. Now, most of BMW cooling system parts are like plastic, So I want to see if I can find something that's not plastic to replace this. And if need be, I'll just get a brand new one of these, because this end, or the part that goes into the back of the water pump housing, is actually broken. So I want to make sure that I'm replacing anything that's broken or that may be looking brittle. A lot of plastics, once it's heat soaked and everything, gets brittle, and it's a 2001, that's 24 years old. So it's getting kind of nasty. The hose is okay, but I'll most likely replace this whole thing just to make sure everything on the engine is fresh. I want to do basically a complete OEM overhaul on this engine, including everything on the inside. If the pistons and rods are okay, I'm going to obviously try and save money and use those, but we're probably going to replace the rod bearings depending what they look like. If they look like they're completely fine, we're just going to reuse them, because if they're okay and there's not material in this oil filter when we pull it off, or there's not material down in the oil pan, it's most likely fine. It's starting to look a lot cleaner already. There is still some, debris that's kind of caked into these corners, probably from changing the oil filter and stuff. It's kind of dirty and stuff up here. So we'll get all that cleaned out and scrubbed with some engine degreaser. I'll probably do that off camera, just to it's gonna take some time to let that soak and kind of have to scrub and put some elbow grease in there. And then inside some of these little ports here, it's pretty far in there, so I'll probably take a small screwdriver and try and scrape out some of that dirt, and then try and clean out inside here too. This side probably just sees a lot more dirt and grime and stuff, because this is the side where you'd fill the oil and everything, and then this thing potentially leaks in here as well. So I'll kind of start scrubbing this just a little bit, get a little extra of this debris stuff off of here, and then we'll go ahead and tip that over and get the antifreeze drained out of the block. Got the block turned back around. Let's pop this plug out. I don't know if it's actually got antifreeze right behind it. No, not quite. We'll get this cleaned up and stuff, and we'll get that put back in, but we'll try and get this rotated carefully to start dumping the antifreeze out of this hole, and hopefully not out of the top of the block. But never know what might happen here. Yeah, so it's coming out right away. We have to tip that up like that. This is probably going to go everywhere. I don't think it's going to drain everything out of this end of the block either. I want to say it's almost like it's tipped back towards this back cylinder anyways. Get that pin back in it so it doesn't continue to go. Yeah, that wasn't too bad, I guess. Mop that up with some rags and should be all right. All right, I'll give you a quick update. I've been scrubbing on this thing for probably an hour. Oil pan's looking way better, much cleaner. This side of the block is looking pretty good. It's taken quite a bit of elbow grease to really scrub on this thing.
getting nice and clean. I just popped out the like oil filter housing, the whole oil pump system deal. I need to clean behind in here a little bit more, but other than that, I think it's looking pretty good, coming along nice. I threw a bunch of floor dry on the ground because I'm just making a mess. The mat's kind of catching the majority of the junk that's just like dripping right down, but then there's overspray obviously, so I'm getting floor dry everywhere, but I'd rather have floor dry everywhere than stains from engine degreaser, oil, and so on. So coming along nicely. I got quite a bit more to kind of scrub, but I think for right now, we'll probably call it for cleaning that. And I'll probably move on to removing the oil pan next, and then the front cover, the timing cover with the water pump after that. So, well, maybe, yeah, I can access these bolts without having to pull that off just yet, because we do want to be able to rotate the crank with the pulley bolt still. So we'll pull this off, and then I can kind of rotate that around and get the rods popped out of here as well. And yeah, that should be where we're going next.
All right, we're now gonna move on to pulling off the oil pan at the bottom. There's a bunch of 10mm bolts all the way around. We have to take the oil pan off first before we can access some of the stuff and take the front timing cover off. So we're gonna work on that real quick. I'm also gonna pull out this, I think it's an oil level sensor at the bottom of the oil pan. We're just gonna pop that out, kind of set that off to the side. We want to make sure everything is in good condition, so that includes any sensors or anything like that. There's also this sensor on this side over here. I want to say it's a water temp sensor. There's two of these ports that are on the side of the block. We want to take those out, make sure that's out of the way. We don't want to bump or crush those sensors. Sensors can get brittle, they are plastic, so we want to make sure that we take care of those. They can also be very expensive, so set them in a safe place when you take them out. So this oil sensor right here is also 10mm nuts. There's 3 of them. We're just gonna pop those out and set that off to the side. A little bit of sludge on there. We're gonna make sure we get that clean, make sure the seal is still okay, because there is an oil seal on the bottom here. Worst case, we might silicone that in, but as long as I can find the seal online, like FCP Euro has a lot of BMW parts, or mainly BMW parts, we should be able to find a replacement if that is bad. So we're gonna break all these 10mm bolts off and make sure you're careful. This is aluminum.
Now we do have all of the bolts loose. I left all of them in the current locations. I just want to verify before taking them out and setting them on the table that they are in fact the same length. For example, these ones in the back are longer because they have to go through a bigger portion of the oil pan. So these two are kind of a medium, these two are long, and then all of these around here I believe are the same, 1 inch length 10mm bolts. So we want to just verify everything is the same length here, not that it goes in a specific location, and then we'll just set them off on the table here, and then we can pop this oil pan off. While cleaning and tipping this around, this piece, it looks like a cast aluminum piece, maybe a baffle or something, fell out from inside of the timing cover in here. So we're gonna maybe try and figure out where that came from and why it could have potentially broke off, if it's something that needs to be there, or if it can be out of the engine. So yeah, that was what I kind of heard rolling around in there. I thought it was coming from the oil pan, but maybe it was just sitting in the front cover.
Now, I'm not sure if this is gonna come off really hard or be very difficult to get off. Depends how much silicone was put on this oil pan. Now, this is an aluminum oil pan. I've said that a couple of times already. regardless if it's aluminum or a metal oil pan, you don't really want to hit an oil pan with a hammer or like a metal hammer. If you have a dead blow or like a rubber mallet, that's probably best to use, just so it's less likely to cause any cracking or bending the flange on it, you know, as well. So there's a little tab on this side and a little tab on this side over here that we can kind of tap on some. You don't really want to shove a screwdriver in there and scratch the mating surface. It has to be able to hold the oil in on the bottom of the engine. So if you have a big scratch, it's going to be very difficult or more difficult to seal that and prevent, you know, oil from spilling or continuously leaking. BMWs are kind of known for burning some oil if you don't take care of them properly. So we're going to replace everything in here and try and minimize the oil consumption or leaking the best we can. So I have myself a rubber dead blow. So we're going to give this a couple of taps in a couple spots and see if it'll break free pretty easy. We don't want to try and use too much force and, like I said, damage the oil pan. That should come up pretty easy. There's most likely a pickup tube in here. Don't want to damage anything like that. So flip that over. There is a gasket in here, but there is also the red high temp silicone. So we are going to make sure we clean this silicone off of the oil pan and off the bottom of the block very carefully with a razor blade and, you know, some brake cleaner or whatever it would take to get that cleaned up. There's also some silicone on the, you know, oil tray that's down in here. We need to make sure we get that all cleaned off as well. I'll give you kind of a look inside of this as well. Kind of sludgy. There was coolant in the oil pan. So that's what that milkiness at the bottom up towards the top of the pan here. So we're gonna get this all cleaned up as well. We are not gonna be able to take out that little baffle that's like riveted in. So we're just gonna make sure we clean that out very thoroughly and make sure this oil pan is basically looking brand new. Just looking at the inside, the bottom of the engine from where it is without taking stuff off. Everything looks relatively okay, except for inside of the oil pickup tube. There is some silicone, obviously, because there's silicone that's actually in the oil pan. So not good, probably too much was put on to begin with. And if you could see down in there, there is some pieces of metal. So I will need to figure out where those pieces of metal came from and if it's potentially something, you know, from a piston skirt, or it doesn't look like bearing material because bearing material is typically like brass. So we're gonna have to look underneath in here. We are gonna pull all of this apart anyways, and the crank is coming out of the block today. But we got to figure out where that stuff came from. All right, moving on. I got the oil pan kind of cleaned out and I cleaned off the mating surface on the bottom of the block. There's a lot of silicone on there and I found little bits of like metal pieces or aluminum potentially. So I'm trying to like pile that stuff up on the table so that I can try and determine how damaged this engine could potentially be. But we're gonna remove the oil pickup tube real quick. 3 10mm bolts, and there's an O-ring that should be at the bottom of the oil pump here. So we're going to take a look at the condition of that as well, and then we're going to take off the tray right here on this side, and then the oil pump and everything is going to come off as well. And that's still got the chain connected to the crankshaft gear, so we just got to make sure we're careful with that, and we'll get this stuff all set out on the table over there. I'll get this thing popped out of here, just like that. That O-ring is smashed completely flat, so that's obviously going to get replaced. Any O-rings or seals are going to be replaced. We're doing a complete overhaul on anything on the inside of this engine, for the most part, minus maybe bearings unless they're damaged or compromised. All right, so I didn't clean this out or anything yet. Just going to kind of try and shake this out, or get this stuff to kind of come out maybe. There's still a piece stuck in there. Oh, I think I got it. Now, I'm not sure
that feels like plastic. So maybe that's coming from the timing chain tensioner. And then as far as these go, that looks like a piece of melted piston almost. That's not, I don't know if that's anything from like in the bottom of the block. To me, that looks like a hot piece of piston. And then another little chip of that as well. And then I'm not sure what this is. This is almost like, it's not glass, but it's like a weird white plastic. So I don't know where that's coming from, but we'll dig into that a little bit. And then another piece of plastic. So there's some little pieces in there, maybe a little concerning. You don't want to see chunks, especially like that. That's like the size of a dime. That's pretty significant for anything coming out of your oil pan or in your pickup tube. I'd rather see it in the pickup tube, I guess, rather than floating around down by the crank and causing damage that way. But that can also cause oil starvation if this gets really plugged up. There is still a little bit more. It does kind of look like there's some more in that pickup tube. I'm gonna have to kind of dig that out and clean that out of there. And see how much more is in there, and I'll show you guys when I get that cleaned out. So I cleaned out some more of this junk. Quite a bit of silicone came out of it. So that's potentially starving the engine of potential oil. And then there is more of these little pieces of what seems like pieces of piston or something, maybe connecting rod, who knows. I'm gonna have to kind of look and inspect everything and see where that stuff's coming from. And then a few more pieces of like plastic, and then a half a piece of an O-ring. So don't know where that came from. Gonna have to see what's missing an O-ring. So yeah, not what you wanna really see coming out of an oil pan or oil pickup tube. We're gonna continue taking this apart some more and see what else is kind of hidden inside of here. I'm hoping there's not big chunks of stuff missing. If there is, it could potentially become costly to repair, but we're gonna see. Gonna pull out these 13mm bolts right here and a 10 right there on the end. And then these are also 13mm for the oil pump. So that's gonna come off and the pan's gonna come off, and then it'll show us the bottom of the crankshaft in there and the bottoms of the piston rods. So we'll get this all taken apart and disassembled and show you guys what it looks like underneath there. Now I'm gonna have to clean this off right away because there's oil sitting on it. So I don't wanna just like set it on the rags on the toolbox. It's just gonna get that soaked full of oil. And we wanna try and control as much of this spilling of oil everywhere as we can. I'm gonna spray that off real quick, but we'll get this thing lifted off here. This shouldn't have a seal or anything, and that is the inside of the engine. All right, I got the gear and the chain off of there. Now we'll just lift this out, and there's a centering pin there. Are there any O-rings or anything that I have to watch out for? It doesn't look like it. Maybe there's supposed to be one there, but there isn't. I don't know, I'll have to look into that. But looks like it's okay, nothing. There we go, there's a centering pin. Don't want to lose that anywhere. Now there's one over here too. That one's kind of stuck in there, so I'm gonna probably put that back right there. You know what, when I flip it over, it's gonna probably fall right back up. So I'm gonna put this up here. All right, so I tried a couple things and I was able to get the hammer jammed in here enough to where I got the bolt out. It was pretty tight, pretty on there. So we'll get this thing popped off, maybe try and, well, we have to get that dead blow out of there, and then we can kind of hammer on this pulley to hopefully get it to just fall off. Otherwise, I do have a puller that's big enough to probably be able to get that pulled out of there. We'll see what we can do first without pulling out the big puller. There we go. Came off relatively easy. This does have like rubber in it, so I mean it's pretty heavy. If we can, we'll maybe look at potential replacement or a different front pulley for this, but you know, as long as this doesn't like fly apart like some will, we could potentially reuse this and it'll be fine. The outer pulley is only going to be going to the water pump, I believe. It used to go to the water pump and the AC compressor, but we're not going to be running AC. All right, so I just popped the water pump out of the housing here. The O-ring is completely smashed. That's going to get replaced. If not, replace just the whole water pump. What I kind of found here is 2 of the 4 bolts are snapped. So I'm going to have to get those out and replace the studs with like just a bolt, which is unfortunate, but you know, that's kind of how things go. I didn't break those. Those were already pre-broken prior to taking this apart. So we'll get this set off to the side here and continue with the front cover. The front crank seal will get replaced on this cover when that time comes as well. So yeah, just kind of gotta continue on and we'll have this front side all disassembled in no time. Of course, there's some coolant sitting in it. There we go. And there is another piece of plastic. I'm guessing it's just from, like all the plastic pieces I'm finding is just from this tensioner, because this looks kind of broken here. Actually, yeah, there's a whole chunk missing. This thing should go up to the 2nd pin. So that could be bad. Where's that whole front half of that? It's not in the bottom of the engine, so wonder how long that's been missing, or if it got pulled out when the top end was pulled apart. What do you do at this point, you know? So I had mentioned this piece like fell out somewhere, found where it goes. So it goes right here in this front timing cover. So that little fin broke off. I'm guessing if something happened inside here in the front cover where this potentially broke and then this guy started flapping around, you know, that would cause damage to these fins in here. Now, is that going to be detrimental to the front cover and how it functions? Probably not. Or maybe, I don't know. I'm not entirely sure. You know, if oil goes up inside here and then catches on here and splashes over, you know, the gears, if it's supposed to be like that to where it like drips off of that spine onto these gears because it goes right in the middle here, maybe that could cause some issues in the future. I'm not entirely sure. This is all kind of new to me of, you know, the internals of a BMW, so I'm not going to know for sure if that's going to be a major issue or not until we kind of get things back together, and we'll find out, you know, in the future. All right, now we're going to take off the timing chain tensioner or the guide. It's just like a plastic clip in here that just holds it in place. So be careful. It just slides out. And I think that just broke. So good thing I'm gonna be replacing that anyways. I don't know if that second piece, no, that was from something else. That little piece, and that's like that light tan glass looking piece that was in the oil pan. So I'm guessing that's from that other one. Oh yeah, it's just right here. That's a small piece, but yeah, plastic, it happens. Now, same thing with this one. There's a little clip on the back side that we're just gonna kind of pry out and break, because why not? It's already broken anyway, so. And then just pop that off that pin. See where that piece of plastic went, or not. It just went flying. But yeah, this is broken half, so it should be sitting on both of these pins and it's only on one. So wherever that other piece is, I have no idea. It's not in the engine anywhere, so that is a mystery to me. Pop off the water pump gasket. That's gonna get replaced with a fresh one as well. It's not like in bad condition, but if you got it off, replace it with a fresh one. So that's gonna kind of wrap up that little portion anyways for now. We'll just slip off the timing chain here, set this up on the towels, and then this oil pump chain as well. I believe in the timing set that I'm gonna be picking up, it comes with a new oil pump chain as well, just so that everything is fresh. We want nice fresh chains. I don't remember how many miles were on this, like 140,000 or something like that, so it's not terrible, but we're gonna get all new parts as much as we can. You know, like I said, maybe some of the internals or bearings if they look like they're in bad condition. But that's gonna kind of wrap it up for today. Unfortunately, don't have the proper socket to take the connecting rods out, so we're gonna look forward to that in the next video, and we'll continue tearing this engine down. So if you have not subscribed yet, hit that subscribe button. We got lots more content coming up for this E46. So yeah, thanks for watching. Stay tuned for the next one.